Here is what we'll be making today, is this nav that sticks, just like that. You've probably seen this all over the place. Maybe I'm just got my eye out for it now that I'm thinking about it, but I feel like I see this constantly. It's an element where you scroll down a little ways down the page and then suddenly the element sticks to the top or sticks to wherever, kind of, as you scroll down and stays, and then kind of magically snaps back to where it was when you get back to where you started, or when you get back further up in the scroll position. It might look like the kind of thing that requires a bunch of JavaScript to implement, but in this case, this is a CSS only, and in fact, it's only a couple of lines of CSS. It's a pretty cool effect, and we're going to learn how to do it right now. So as usual, I'm starting with nothing, and you're going to watch me make mistakes and maybe look stuff up and fumble through this. But what I have already is I've picked out a hero image. I just went out and found a landscape or just some image to use in the hero to kind of complete the look of the page that we're making, so it's not so boring. But you can use, whatever. So I'm going to start off with making an index HTML file. Let's call this, just to not be boring, sticky.html. And I'm going to throw some boilerplate in there, and I'm going to try to not go through too much unnecessary detail. I'm going to call this sticky. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make like a blog post. And the idea of this is to make the sticky nav that's going to stick to the top of the page after you scroll past a hero image. So at the top's going to be a hero image, then we'll have our sticky nav, and then underneath that we'll have an article. And then as you scroll through the article, your nav will be stuck there at the top of the page where it normally is. But then when you scroll back up, you'll just see the hero image. So I'm going to start off by making my basic elements and giving them some dimensions. So I'm going to start off by doing a div, and this will be the hero. And then I'm going to make my nav, and this will be a UL. With, I don't know how many nav elements we'll have, times 4, and we'll just do some kind of generic stuff. Blog about, and we'll do contact. Okay, that takes care of that HTML-wise. Then we'll do an article, and we'll start off with an H1, and let's do something interesting. I'm going to just kind of do a jump cut here, but I'm going to go look up a title from The Onion. And I found something that I think is appropriate. All right, good. So I got a title. Now we're going to just fill this out with a bunch of lorem ipsum. So I can do lorem times 2 to get 2 lines of lorem ipsum, which is just filler text. Then I'm going to do a break, and then I'm going to do another paragraph with lorem times 4 to get 4 lines. You get the idea. I'm just going to fill this out. And the purpose for doing all of this is to have something to scroll past when we scroll down and have our nav stuck to the top. So we'll do another paragraph, and then we'll do lorem. Let's keep this one short, times 1, and then do maybe one more, and let's see if this gives us enough. And then we're going to do, with another paragraph, lorem times 5. Okay. So this gives us a place to put our hero, this gives us our nav, and this gives us our article. Hopefully this will all make sense in just a second. So we're going to go over here, and here is our page so far. So now we need to do a little bit of styles, or at least get ourselves started. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do a style at the top. So first I need to give my hero some dimensions so that it takes up the appropriate amount of space. So I'm going to make my hero, I'm going to make sure it's 100% of the viewport width. I'm going to make it about, let's call it, 500 or 550 pixels high. I'm going to give it a background eventually, but for right now, let's just give it a background color so that we can see it, of blue. Then I'm going to do my nav. And I'm going to keep this simple for now. I'm not going to do much for the nav itself. I'm going to give it a bottom border just so that we can see it better, of solid 1 pixel black. I'm going to give it a background color of white, just to avoid any guesses being made later. And I think I'm going to leave it at that for the nav for right now, because we're not going to do anything sticky just yet. I want you to see where exactly, when I apply that sticky style, I want you to see, I want that to stand out, you know, and see exactly what that looks like. I am going to style the list though, so I'm going to do the nav UL, and I'm going to make this a list style of none, and then I'm going to make this display flex, because I freaking love flex, and it takes care of so many problems, especially when it comes to making nav bars that scale and change proportions, or like change, you know, spacing in between, or having text float in the middle. It's just so incredibly convenient. So I'm going to make this a row, flex direction row, because I'm going to be concerned with the horizontal space here. Then I'm going to justify my content with space evenly, and that's going to evenly space out all of the elements in my navigation. So I don't have to do percents or anything like this to get them to be spaced evenly apart. They'll each take up an equal amount of space in the nav, which is awesome. I'm going to vertically align them with align items center, so that they're floating in the middle on the what is this, the y-axis? It's x. We've just done to space evenly, center them, and then I'm going to align item center, which centers them on the y-axis. Then I'm going to give it just a tiny bit of padding at 15 pixels and none. So we're just going to do top bottom of 15, and let's see how that looks. That's a little bulky. What the hell? I guess 15 is a little much, isn't it? What do I have? Oh, I've got default styles. So all I added was 15 pixels top bottom of padding, but when I hover on this element, I can see it's got padding and margin, and I didn't apply that margin, and that's because my user agent style sheet provided by the browser is providing its own styles, which I hate and want to get rid of. So I'm going to set the padding to 0 and the margin to 0 on each of these, so that when just out of the box, the browser is not going to be giving my unordered list, for instance, any margin that it just thinks that it deserves, because this is what the browser does out of the box. And this should make that look a little bit better. Way better. Okay. So now I got to tidy up the blog portion, and that'll be about it. And then we can get into some more interesting stuff. So with the blog, I'm going to make it a narrow column of text and bump up a little bit of padding so that we have some room to scroll. So I'm going to say, I'm going to make the article, and I'm going to make it a width of 50 pixels. Again, that's just like I guess I like that number. And a margin of 0 auto, so that I can center it without centering the text, that is. So let's see how that looks. Cool. Now I've got some room to scroll, but still not too much. So I'm going to bump up the font size to 20 pixels, and I'm going to change, while I'm at it, my font family to serif, because unless it's a really pretty font, I really don't like serif fonts like this. It's got the little feet, it's got the little, you know, the top and the bottom on the H, the little feet, and then if I reload, we'll see it without serifs, so there's none of those anymore. Let's go back to 100%. Okay, and now I've got to the point where my nav is scrolling off the page, which is mostly what I want, so that we can see what it looks like when the nav sticks and stays here as I scroll. Let's do a little bit more padding in the article. So I want to do, let's do 50 pixels top and bottom, and then nothing on the sides. And then let's do our, the article H1 should be, I like huge article headings. I don't know why. I think that looks pretty cool. So we got a big heading here, and I'm going to give it some margin bottom of, I don't know, 30 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Okay, I mean, we're getting somewhere, and this is enough to give us the idea. I don't think this looks half bad, and we're going to at least get the opportunity to see what happens when we scroll down, and this thing sticks. So we're going to go back to our sticky nav, which is here, our nav element, and we're going to add a class to make this sticky. So first, I'm just going to do position sticky. And I think that's enough. We're going to see. Because there might be something else that I have to apply, but... Oh, that's not it. Okay, hold on. What else do we do? Position sticky. Do I have to give it a top? Because, okay, the idea with sticky is, I think it's relative. Its position is relative right now until it hits the top of the viewport, and then its position changes to fixed, at which point I believe it needs at least a top value, if not also a left, but I think it's going to be looking for a top value. Let's see if that does the trick. That was it. Yeah, so it's looking for, because the idea behind a sticky element is that it toggles back and forth between, I think it's position relative and position fixed, then it's going to be looking for that top value. And before I gave it one, I think it just kind of stayed where it is. If you make a position fixed item and you don't, or element, and you don't give it a top value or a left value, it kind of won't do anything. So that's what happened there. Anyways, so that's pretty cool, right? With a single, I mean, really this is 2 lines to make it sticky and to make it give it that top value. This looks pretty slick, right? I mean, when you first see this, you think like this takes a whole bunch of code to remember where this thing was and to have some pixel value that's like, if this is 550, then we're going to pick this up at 551 and watch the scroll position. None of that. It's super easy, and I think it just adds a lot, and it's just a cool thing to have in your tool belt. It's a cool thing to know about. I'm going to go in and fix this up. I showed you the image at the beginning. I'm going to throw that in there and then give you guys one more little once over before we're done. All right, there we have it. I didn't change much, just added a picture. But you can see our nav is sticking. You can do this with any element. You know, if you keep your eye out, you'll see this all over the place. It's extremely cool. And I think, you know, like I said, adds a lot. People will think it's a lot more impressive than it really is. If you have any questions, let me know. See you next time.